Ladies and gentlemen, CX colleagues, welcome to the Roundtable World Tour Around Creativity. In order to be creative, we need to look wider. We need to look beyond traditional professional area. That's why it's my pleasure and pride today to introduce you to my colleagues and friends, world-class speakers from Global Speakers Consortium. These amazing people have joined the efforts today, especially for us, for Global CX Day, to share their views on creativity. You will hear insights from people outside CX, from a communication expert, from an innovation guru, from a famous futurist, from an expert in behavioral finance, from two professionals in corporate culture, and from an expert in family wealth. And it's not a coincidence that I have a globe here, because we have a Global CX Day, and those people come from across the globe, from South Africa, from Australia, from United States, and from United Kingdom. And we, as CX professionals, shall get ready for bright and creative future. So let me start by introducing you Graham Codrington, a futurist and world-class expert in the future of work. And Graham will be your guide in this world tour. So Graham, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Olga. Thank you, Ian, and welcome to everybody who's joining this roundtable. As Olga said, this roundtable is being hosted by a group of speakers and experts that have called themselves Consortium. And if you want to find us online and get a little bit more detail about the group of people that are going to be speaking to you, go and have a look at our website, consortium.com, and you can find out a little bit more. As Olga said, my name is Graham Codrington. I'm based out of South Africa, and I'm a futurist. That doesn't mean I can predict the future. I wish that I could. But what it means is that I focus my attention on trying to understand the disruptive forces that are shaping the world around us, trying to figure out not what is going to happen next, but look for trends and patterns and help my clients to make sense of those, working out what is just a fad that we can ignore that disappears in time, and what actually is a disruptive force that is going to influence us. And the biggest issue that we have when we try and think about the future is something that I think is best described as inattentional blindness. Now, for those of you whose language is not English, your first language, I am playing with English here, so let me be clear about what I'm saying. This is not unintentional blindness. It's not because you are just ignoring the future that we don't really understand what's coming at us or miss the future. It is inattentional blindness. What I mean by that is your attention is focused on the work that you're doing. You're an expert in the area that you're in. We're talking CX today, so you're probably a CX expert. You've got industry expertise. You've got a lot of experience. However long you've been doing this, however long you've been in the industry, you've got education probably behind you, some kind of accreditation. So experience, expertise, education, all of these things help you do your job. The problem is that you may be too focused. If the world is changing as much as we experience it changing at the moment, if we realize that as we look at the future, it is more VUCA than it's ever been before, well, maybe a different picture will help you to understand what I think the problem is. Just like a racehorse, we've put these blinkers on the racehorse to help the racehorse focus, to take away the distractions so that you don't see all the other things coming your way. And this, by the way, is exactly how your brain is programmed. Daniel Kahneman talks about this a lot in his book, Thinking Fast and Slow. And a colleague of ours who's not able to join us today, also named Graham, just to confuse you, Graham Newell, he spends a lot of time thinking about these types of things in financial behavior. This impacts every part of our lives, from financial behavior, and go and have a look at some of Graham's YouTube videos and some of the stuff that he puts up on LinkedIn to see how the way we think limits what we can actually see. Daniel Kahneman talks about the fast part of the brain and the slow part of the brain. I'll let you go and have a look at his research in a little bit more detail, but it's not about intelligence. In fact, the most intelligent people are probably the people who are in the most difficulty with a world that's changing, because intelligence is measured these days at school and at university and in the world around us by your ability to see what's happening, for your ability to identify the patterns in the world around you. But I think that intelligence should be measured in our ability to think again. In Daniel Kahneman's language, to use our slow brain rather than just the quick response brain that we have. I can prove it's not about intelligence, because one of the most intelligent men in history is Albert Einstein. We all know that. We even refer to people as Einsteins when we call them intelligent. But the last few years of Albert Einstein's life are maybe less well known. He's obviously hugely well known for coming up with the theories of relativity and kickstarting modern science as we know it today. But the last few years of his life, he spent trying to disprove his theories. Because once you've understood the theory of relativity, the next step is quantum physics and quantum theory. And Einstein never really got his head around quantum physics. In fact, as you can see from the quote there, he used to say, it isn't right, it's not correct, it's silly, in fact. He was actually trying to disprove his own theories. He could think, he was super smart, but he couldn't think again. He couldn't look at the world that he had seen and see it differently. We know this to be confirmation bias. Your brain is programmed. It is desperate to only see what it already believes. Now, what has all of this got to do with my job, looking at the future, and with this hour that we are spending together on CX Day? Well, I think it's got everything to do with where we are now, because if the world is in a state of disruption, and it is, of course, if we're in a state where uncertainty is the new reality, where the rules for success and failure in different industries and different functions are changing, well, then what we need is a different perspective. We've got to be careful of coming with blinkers on and saying, I know this environment, I know CX, I know how it works, I know my industry, I've been here, my experience, my expertise, my education, all are things that help me to know exactly where I am and what I need to do next. And there's a danger that we have these blinkers on, that we blindfolded, that we fail to see the change that's going on around us. And so that's what we want to do for you today. Olga's brought us together. She's well known to you as an expert in CX, well known in your community. And what she convinced all of us to do, and it didn't take much convincing, we love doing what we're going to do for you now, is to bring different perspectives to you. People from outside of this industry, outside of this expertise, who maybe can just give you some insights by looking at CX from a different perspective, by bringing the themes of this day and the themes of this roundtable of creativity and innovation and new ways of thinking together. So that's what you're going to hear from me. The future is different. You knew that already. But it's never going back to normal again. And what we might need is a few different insights to get us thinking differently about the way that we see the world. So now let me introduce our two colleagues who are working together. They are business partners, Steve Simpson, who is based out of Australia, and Steph Duplessis, based in South Africa. Steve Simpson is one of the world's leading experts in workplace culture, and Steph Duplessis, a leading expert in employee engagement. And together, they obviously focus on the perspective that we need to have of the culture of our organizations and how that impacts customer experience and creativity. So Steph and Steve, I know you've got something combined planned for us. I'll hand over to you now.
Thanks, Graham. Steve, are you there, buddy?
I'm here, Steph, and Graham is called a futurist. In fact, I should be called a futurist because it is 1 o'clock in the morning on the 6th of October, where I am right now.
Okay, Steve, so with that, let's get to it. And we are, in the next 12 minutes or so, going to share a few ideas as to how culture and employee engagement can influence not only customer experience, but creativity and many other factors in the workplace. Steve, I'm going to kick off with this, if that's okay with you. So, a quick question. Reflect on a time when you started a new position somewhere, started a new job. Think back to that first day in that new position. Would it be fair to say that no matter which country you found yourself in, therefore, no matter which ethnic culture you were working in, and no matter what level of seniority you were, is it fair to say that on that first day, you were perhaps a little bit more quiet than you would normally be? And if not you personally, is it fair to say that most humans are a little bit more quiet on their first day in a new position, in a new job? We find that to be true. And the question is, why would that be? And we think we know the answer. We believe that the answer is because they are looking for the UGRs, the unwritten ground rules. People's perception of this is the way we do things around here. Now, in a moment, I'm going to hand over to Steve, and he's going to share with you a couple of insights of what that would typically have looked like in the pre-COVID world. I don't know if you can remember that time, pre-COVID, late 2019, early 2020, when we thought that everything was going to plan. Can you remember? Well, back in those times, Steve is going to pick up with speaking about that briefly, and then we'll bring it forward and speak about what that has to do with us and creativity and customer experience now. Steve, to you.
So most of us unconsciously are staying quieter when we join an organisation. Why? To tune into, to find out what the UGRs or unwritten ground rules are. Why? In order that we can conform. The vast majority of us conform to what we believe are people's perceptions of this is the way we do things around here. So typical things that we'll tune into, again, mostly unconsciously, include things like, well, what do people talk about after a meeting? How are meetings conducted? Is there a high level of interaction, or do people generally stay quiet? Is a different point of view ever raised? If it is, how's that greeted? What about some thoughts from you, Steph? What other cues do people tune into?
Well, we're talking pre-COVID, everyone, remember? So pre-COVID, a new employee in their first meeting, regardless of level of seniority, would try to see things like whether the meeting starts and stops on time. Who sits where? Who makes eye contact with who else? When who else walks in the room? What happens when someone asks a question? What happens when someone makes a mistake? What happens when someone challenges a management decision? And at the end of the meeting, when the boss of the meeting typically asks, so are there any questions? Whether or not people actually ask questions or raise an opinion. And then finally, what happens in the meeting after the meeting when we hear the real truth, or at the water cooler? Steve?
So here's some examples of UGRs, unwritten ground rules, that we've come across in workplaces over the years. They can include things like, at our meetings, it isn't worth complaining because we know nothing will get done. The only time anyone gets spoken to by the boss is when something is wrong. The organisation talks about the importance of customer service or customer experience, but we know they don't really mean it, so we don't really have to worry about it. The remarkable thing about UGRs is that they are seldom talked about openly, and yet they drive our behaviour. It's our contention that it is the UGRs, or unwritten ground rules, that are your culture. Culture is merely people's perceptions of this is the way we do things around here. It is quite remarkable when you think about it, how powerful they are. Now, we're being a bit unfair because the examples I've just given now are negative. That is not necessarily the case with UGRs. If you're in a positive team right now, by definition, there are positive UGRs. If you're in an ordinary team right now, by definition, there are ordinary UGRs. We're human beings. Inevitably, we'll get a mix. We'll get some positive, some less than positive, some in between. A key question for all of us is, are our current UGRs a function of luck or chance, or are they by design? And we're going to come back to that a little bit later. Before we do move on to that, Steph, I think it might be worth you sharing the McLaren story, because sometimes UGRs can hit us in the face. They're very obvious. So, for example, if you're a new person at a meeting and you say something that you shouldn't have said, you're quickly going to see it. It's very obvious to you. Sometimes UGRs are far more subtle, but we would argue no less powerful. And Steph's got a really fascinating story to share with you about a subtle example at McLaren Automotive. Steph?
Steve says that sometimes they're subtle, but everyone remember, sometimes they're right in your face as well. These cues and clues, which give away what the culture is at a subconscious level. Before I tell you about McLaren, a quick apology. I'm really sorry that my business partner, Steve, speaks English in such a funny manner. It's because he's from Australia and they struggle with pronunciation. I'll translate for Steve if anyone has any English to English or Australian to English translation inquiries. Let me tell you about McLaren. So Steve, my partner there, is the creator, the original creator of the UGRs concept, maybe some 25 or so years ago. We partnered shortly after that, and we've evolved it together as a science since then. The only reason that he's asking me to tell the McLaren story is because if he told it, he would not be able to add that he is the one who landed McLaren Automotive as a client for us. Now, that's a pretty posh client to have, and they've been working on and off with us over a number of years now. The first time that Steve went to work at McLaren, he went alone. He only took me along later for spectator value. As the vehicle that picked him up from the airport arrived in Woking, some 2.5 hours out of London, Nigel, our friend in London, will correct me on that if I'm wrong, but some 2.5 hours or so out of London, as you enter the premises of McLaren, there is a security boom where immaculately dressed security folk are ready to receive you. You go in the boom, and then as you make your way towards the main head office, which is a spectacular building, as you make your way down there, there is a hedge running down the side of the road. It is maybe 100 or 200 meters long. As they drove in on that day, Steve asked the car to stop because he witnessed something remarkable. He took a photograph of it, and we normally use that photo in this part of the presentation. What he saw was not just a man cutting the hedge, but that at a distance you could see that the man had a tape measure in his hand and that he was measuring the height of the hedge, which is remarkable if you think about it. You have probably never seen anyone measure the height of the hedge. Steve, tell us why the man was measuring the hedge.
Because there is a UGR at McLaren in the production plant that says precision and attention to detail is paramount. That UGR has even infected the gardeners. It's quite remarkable.
And Steve, to add to that, not only has it infected the gardener, but it reinfects everyone who comes on site every day, because as they arrive at work, the chief engineer, busy designing the next generation McLaren, drives past him, witnesses him demonstrating excellence and professionalism, and subconsciously reminds himself, this chief engineer, that is what he needs to do here today, if indeed he wants to fit in. Steve.
So, in the customer experience domain, our contention is that we need a culture by design. We need not to leave this to chance, but to have a culture by design where, for example, we are fighting for UGRs associated with creativity, for example. I wonder how your people, if they were open and honest, would complete this sentence. Around here, when someone comes up with a new idea. Because you see, what that's doing is opening a window into the UGRs associated with creativity. If we were fighting for agility, I wonder how your people would complete this sentence. Around here, when a quick decision needs to be made, because that's opening a window into the UGRs associated with agility. So it's our contention that it is imperative that we fight collectively for the culture that's going to enable us to truly be able to deliver outstanding customer experiences. Steph, I'm looking at the clock and we have about 3 minutes left. So I'm going to hand over to you because there's another aspect to this, which is where Steph's expertise lays in particular. And Steph, I think by my reckoning, you have about 3 minutes to
that's my reckoning too, but I'm going to cut back on that and see if I can do it in less so that we can hand some time back to our friends on this panel because of the fact that we started a few minutes late. So all I will say about employee engagement is this. It might sound over assertive in the short time that I'm going to express it, but I'm going to cut right to it and state my thesis on engagement. I think that leaders typically try to engage people in the workplace with calls to action, like organizational values, like our purpose and our vision and our mission, like the customer experience, quality, retention, or any of those other metrics which could improve quality, safety, a whole long list. I think the call to action is wrong. I think that employees, even the well-intended ones, do not come to work every day to achieve those ends, but that they come to work every day to try to get through that which they are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And with best of intentions, they try and engage at work, but not always the way that they could or should. It's a little bit like King Sisyphus from Greek mythology, who rolled that boulder up the hill only to find that it rolled down again every night and he had to start over tomorrow. I think there's a different call to action, that we can help people to understand how them doing their job makes it better for other people, like their co-workers, and how them doing their job helps to create something bigger than themselves. And if we create that awareness, it is our finding in the clients we've worked with across 50 countries in the last 25 years, it is our finding that with that call to action, as an unintended consequence, all of the other metrics will improve as well. But not because they focused on them, because they are focused on how they can enable others or how they can make this place better. With that, Graham Codrington, back at you, my friend.
Thanks, Steve and Steph. Steve, we're going to say good night and thank you for staying up beyond the call of duty from Australia. Steph is going to stay with us and we are going to have a chance to answer some questions. But here is the value of being in a digital world. The chat box is open. People, I know some of you have been using it. Well done for dealing with your sound issues. Whoever had your sound issues earlier, getting that sorted out. Steph is going to be available in the chat box. So while you're listening to our next speaker, if you have any questions for Steph, go ahead, throw them in the chat box and he can answer them there as well. Don't forget, if you want to know more about this whole group and Steve and Steph in particular, go and check out the consortium website and you'll get more information there. Our next insight comes from Reg Atwal. He's based out of Dubai and he heads up the Family Business Academy, which is the Middle East's premier consulting group on building family legacies and building family businesses. He's an entrepreneur himself and he's going to be talking to us. He's pre-recorded this. He couldn't be with us live, but he is going to be talking to us about what we can learn from businesses that have built these lasting legacies. and how they engage with their customers. So let's roll Reg's video now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Graham, for that lovely introduction. My name is Reg. It's a pleasure to be serving all of you today. So would you like to build a CX legacy? Some of you are probably thinking, okay, I know CX, I know what that means, but CX legacy? What does that mean? Well, I've been working with family businesses and family offices for the last 20 years. And one thing that they've all got in common is they all are building legacies or wanting to build legacies. And having a chance to work with 180 family businesses around the world from first to 12th generation, as well as doing research the last 20 years of family businesses that have gone from 12th to 46 generations. I mean, picture this for a second. Imagine a family business in Japan that started off 1,443 years ago. Yes, you heard that correctly. 1,443 years ago. There's a founder who started working with the next generation, and all they had was a small business, which was a lodge to serve other customers, to serve people who were mainly travelers coming through the area. And that small lodge started to expand into a hospitality business, being passed down from one generation to the next. Today, they are 46th generation family business. They've been around for 1,443 years. Unfortunately, someone on the 47th generation, next level, passed away in the last 12 months or so. But there's a grandson who's 48th generation that the grandfather is grooming today. Now, why do I share this story? Because family businesses that have gone beyond 5, 6, 7, 12 generations and been around for hundreds of years have certain things in common. And that's really what I'd like to leave you with today in this very, very small or short presentation. What they have in common, first of all, is outside of the products and services that they offer, the building that they occupy, the infrastructure that they have, the location that they're in, the employees that they have, and whatever else is happening around the world, whether there's an economic crisis, a recession, a pandemic, government changes, fluctuations in currencies, all these things that these family businesses have been through hundreds of years and still around today, what do they have? What is the secret sauce that allows them to build a CX legacy? Well, it really comes down to, first of all, their values. All these families have what I call non-negotiable values. With my family, with my wife and 4 children, we have something called a family values charter. I propose to you to create a CX values charter. A set of values that are non-negotiable here for the next 100 years and beyond, that every single person in the family, in your case, if you're running a corporation right now, with all of your leaders and managers and people who would join the organization in the future, adopt. Non-negotiable. There is no compromise here. This is the DNA. This is what we're going to be doing. So for that lodge in Japan, that expand into a hospitality business, their focus was how they serve their customers, the detail that they go into, the pleasure that they give them, the experience that they have that goes above and beyond just the look and feel of the building or the bed that they're going to be sleeping in that lodge. And that's why there's many other stories like this. I remember a Jewish family in California, 100-year plus legacy, a restaurant business, moving from one generation to the next. And the reason why people keep coming to that restaurant is because of the community atmosphere that they've created. There's something special about a certain generation having a customer coming and saying, by the way, this is my son and this is my daughter. And those family members are also adopting the same values, going the extra mile to speak to those customers, to care for them, and make sure they have a wonderful CX experience. But that experience, that DNA, that secret sauce carries on from one generation to the next. So, question I've got for you, what are your core values? There's other great speakers you're going to be hearing from today, and I've already heard from, which will be talking a little bit more about the value piece. The second part is purpose. All of these family businesses that have built legacies are driven by purpose. Why are we doing this? Why are we operating this business? It's not just to make more profits and increase revenue. They've all done that over 100 plus years. It's all about the service. It's all about satisfaction, feeling that you've done a great job by the end of the day serving somebody. And the more people you serve and they keep coming back, ultimately the revenues and profits will follow. What is your purpose for your business? Why are you doing this? Why I'm doing this, unfortunately, my grandfather, first generation entrepreneur, when he passed away, the second generation sabotaged the entire legacy. And I'm the eldest male bloodline member of the third generation. I watched that as a young boy. It disturbed me. I wanted to fix it. I wanted to do something about it. And that resulted 20 years ago to start working with family businesses to help them build their legacies. My strapline is very simple. One family, one legacy. One family, one legacy. Everything is encapsulated in that strapline as a purpose statement to make sure I can help families be united and live in harmony. And as a result of that, they build their business and build a legacy. But it's not about me, it's about you. What is your 3, 4, 5 words that encapsulates your purpose, your mission, that everybody in your business understands? And it resonates with them. They're also driven by serving that purpose on a day-to-day basis. Some people may call it a mission. So we've spoken briefly about values, briefly about purpose. Let me leave you with a few questions to consider when it comes to you building your CX legacy. So I've got some questions there. Number one, let's summarize. What are your core non-negotiable values which will be expressed towards every customer by every single person in your organization? These are non-negotiable. They're in writing. It's a charter. Everybody's going to sign off. What are those? And if you don't have them, maybe that's what you could start working on off the back of this very, very short presentation today. Do you have a purpose and a mission that links to engaging with customers? Yes or no? That could be the second thing to consider of building that out. And more importantly, can those things be transferable to future generations regardless of the evolution of technology and change? Today, you could be getting involved in electric cars, okay? We could be using more and more technology, AI, VR. People want to go to Mars. There's always going to be something new. It's the evolution of this world that we're in with human beings. But right at the core, the DNA of your business, to build a CX legacy, what are those things that you want to transfer from one generation to the next, whether it's family members, leaders to leaders, managers to managers, employees to employees, where those things happen long after we have left this planet. So those are a few things I'd like you to consider. Build your CX legacy, build something special that is here for hundreds of years, just like the Hushi family, and that's the name of the family, the Hushi family in Japan, which has been around for 1,443 years. So on that note, I'd like to thank you very much for your time and attention and hand you back to your host, Dr. Graham Codrington. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Reg. From Australia to South Africa, from Dubai, we now go across to the UK. I want to introduce a friend and part of the consortium team, Nigel Risner. He's one of the world's leading experts in communication, understanding people. He was a CEO, one of the youngest ever CEOs, and then he decided, in his words, running a business was easy. Engaging with people is the hard thing. And now he helps people all around the world to do that better. Nigel, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much indeed. And it's great to see everybody here. And I've got 6 minutes to do a communications program, which is going to challenge some of you, but it's going to get you thinking. So a couple of questions, because I want to go one stage further from Reg and from Steph and Steve, because one of the reasons we have a problem in our organizations is because we are not brilliant at communication. We're not even good at listening. So one of the things I'm going to suggest you do is to ask some of your clients 5 very simple questions. And then I'm going to ask you to think about how you respond to the questions and the answers you're given. So 5 very quick questions. And if you ask in the chat box that a copy of it, I can put it in there. So the 5 questions are very simple. What do you like about buying from us? Ask your existing clients, your existing contacts, what do they like about buying from you? But the real question is, why do they buy from you in the first instance? You may be very surprised why somebody bought from you in the first instance. It may have nothing to do with your marketing. Then ask them, what problems did you have before you bought from us or you came to our consultancy? Question number 4, how do we help you solve those problems? And then the last question is, how are things better for you now? Now, you may never have done a customer audit. You may never have asked the right questions, but you think, and I'm going to repeat this, you think you're communicating in the right language. So I'm going to give you a simple analogy that says that all of your customers are one of four animals. They're either a monkey, a lion, an elephant, or a dolphin. Your framework and your internal clients, your families, everyone you meet is one of those four animals. And your job is to start recognizing that those type of animals will respond to your questions in a different way. I am a massive, massive monkey. I've been a monkey all my life. So I've been given 6 minutes to share a program. I should have had slides. I should have been able to go into really sophisticated stuff. I don't do that because I'm a monkey, but I've got some great analogies. I've got some great stories, but I'm not very focused on an end result, and I don't always follow through. So you're going to have certain clients that will say yes very quickly, but don't follow through. You need to make things really simple for the monkeys. Then you're going to have some lions. These are the decision makers, but they want the latest technology. They don't want to be part of some program. They don't care about your 100-year history. They definitely don't care about your 1,000-year history. What they care about is the latest technology and how you're going to transform their business to make them number one. They don't want to be in the top three. They want to be the number one in the industry and how you can help them get to that place. Lions do not care about people. They care about a result. Then you'll have the elephants, and you will have many elephant clients. Now, this is a great hat, by the way. Normally at this point, the monkeys will be thinking one thing and one thing only, where to get the hats from. But seriously, you will have clients who are elephants, who want detail, who want an agenda, who want to check your website, and they are not going to make a decision very carefully. Sorry, they're not going to make a decision very quickly. See, as a monkey, I got it even wrong. It's my own program. Here's the point. Elephants need structure. They need detail. They need an agenda. They need time to think about your process. And if you want to make the CX experience the best, don't rush elephants. Then you've got the dolphins. And they want to make sure this global CX day is the best it can be, because it's about globally getting the world together in communication, in creativity, in making this experience better. Dolphins want to make sure this product is global for everyone. They don't want to make sure anyone gets beaten in the process. They want us to be on equal terms. Now, here's the whole program. And here's the point of the whole of this exercise. If you want to be phenomenal in your CX experience, you have to become the zookeeper. And zookeeping in a world like today is to make sure that you listen, not twice, because that phrase, 2 ears and 1 mouth, is not enough. You need to listen, and the word listen is spelled L-I-S-T-E-N, 10 times the amount to your clients than you've ever done before. Listening are the greatest skills and the one we do the least. If you want to communicate even better, listen more. Listen to your clients in their language. So when you're listening to a monkey, they're going to come up with loads of excuses. They're going to say, yeah, no problem, I'll go ahead with you. They're probably not, unless you get them to buy into a story. The lions are only going to buy into a process if they feel special. They don't care about you. Elephants are only ever going to buy into a process if they feel secure, trusted, knowledgeable, they're given all the detail. And last but not least, dolphins will only do it if it helps the whole community. Now, I'm rushing this because I want to make sure you get the most out of today. Every speaker who shares information is speaking in their language to a global message to you to give you the best chance of success. There are no difficult clients. I'm going to repeat that. There are no difficult clients. They are just different. And the reason you're not selling well and keeping your clients for a long time is because you're speaking the wrong language. You do not want to have single transactions in a global CX world. You don't even really want great relationships. What you really want is partnerships. Most of my clients have been with me for years. Steph and Steve have worked with some of their clients 15, 20 years. Reg has worked with organizations that have been together 1,000 years. You can hear from other speakers who are going to share messages, but deep down, how do you get into partnership with your clients? And it's by speaking the right language. So if you're interested, there are hundreds of assessment tools. There's hundreds of different models. Go to my website. There's a free assessment tool on my website. You can find out which animal you are in literally 20 seconds, because the closer and the quicker you can understand your animal type and then recognize you need to become a zookeeper, feed your clients the right food, life is pretty simple. There you go, Graham. Remember what I said to you very, very beginning when we first had one of our videos? What's the most important lesson in leadership? And it's always communication. Back to you, Graham.
Thank you, Nigel, as always, bringing the energy to the room. Fantastic. Don't forget, if you do want to just catch up, get more information of any of these little thought bullets that we're sending your way, consortium.com will give you all the information about all of us that you need. Don't forget that you can also put questions into the chat box, into the Q&A. Mina, you asked a question. You said that I said that intelligent people might struggle in this disrupted world. What does that mean? And the point I was trying to make is, obviously you want to be intelligent. Hopefully you're getting a lot of information thrown at you. But when you are intelligent, focused, and you have all of that expertise and experience directed in just one area, your difficulty is to step back and think again, looking at other aspects of the world around you. We hope that what we are doing here for you in this hour, coming at you in short, sharp points, is doing exactly that. It's getting your brain to think in different ways. So we hope that you're enjoying this roundtable so far. Please keep using the chat box and the Q&A in the last few minutes that we've got left together. Now, Nigel was talking about buy-in, getting people to buy into what you are doing. That's our next speaker's expertise. He's the buy-in expert, and he might be quite familiar, in fact, to many of you in CX world. He's based out of the USA, so we're moving across, in fact, the far side of the USA. He's still very early on his Tuesday morning. Mike Wittenstein calls himself a storyteller, not the once upon a time story, but the story that your business can tell that will get people engaged, involved, and buying into big dreams and visions. Mike, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Graham. Today, I'm going to share 4 very specific ways you can use creativity in your customer experience work to go beyond the numbers and reach those game-changing results you see in your mind's eye. Let's get started. Creativity is a word that means the same thing in most cultures and languages. Creativity reaches our humanity, touches our senses, sparks our imaginations, and sometimes encourages us to be brave. Customer experience professionals are lucky because people like you and me get to combine the efforts of so many different specialties. As customer experience designers, and we are all designers, we're also artists. It's exciting, especially for me, to work with such a broad palette. I hope you feel the same way. I hope the next few minutes will help you see beyond the numbers. After all, everyone deserves to see their ideas at work in the real world. So let's get started. Brands make promises that businesses must keep. Customer experience is the bridge between them. For example, Transitions Optical, the company that makes lenses that darken in response to ultraviolet light, uses this mission statement. We help people live more vibrant lives by enhancing their vision and the way they perceive light. I love this mission statement because it's 100% customer-centric. It also emphasizes the science behind how they manipulate light waves to help people see better. Here's how we extended it to a Store the Future concept we helped them with a few years ago. Transitions in-store experience exists to astound eyeglass wearers and non-wearers so much that they tell their friends. It's not about selling more, it's about going viral. To make sure everyone understood it in the same way, we added some detail. When you extend the brand to include the customer's experience, you get the brand team on your side and your project carries more weight. When your experience is designed to work in harmony with the brand, creating alignment is much easier. If you do this, customer experience becomes the birthplace of word of mouth. Most journey maps present touch points or process steps on a timeline. If you're designing a food delivery experience based on an app, that makes perfect sense. But what if several details have to appear at the same time? Presenting your ideas on a timeline or a journey map can make them even harder to understand. So when designing experiences that involve complex interactions like checking into a hospital, buying furniture, or arriving for your first day at a new job, try grouping the details and show them with pictures. Here's an example of a new employee onboarding experience. This visual grouping gives readers a quick overview of key moments so that they can imagine themselves in each one of them. You're correct. The first 5 touch points here are the same things you'd find on a linear journey map, but there are 3 useful differences. The text on the left defines where the experience starts and stops, getting everyone on the same page. It also indicates what success looks like for the experience and for the customer, not just for the numbers. The top right helps people remember the context for each touch point so they can see where it fits into the constellation of touch points and key moments you're designing. Finally, the details built into each image make every action clearer. Adding more details during the design phase makes experiences happen faster and work better. In this example, showing an employee's arrival for their first day at work, take a look at those black numbers. Each shares a detail or a clue that gives the experience its functional capability and emotional impact. I like that word, clue, because it emphasizes that customers discover them. By the way, I learned that from one of my customer experience mentors, Lou Carbone at Experience Engineering. So thanks, Lou. So take a look at clue number 17. It represents a digital display. Now that digital display is not in the lobby right now. This is a future state customer experience. So that's one clue that the business has to create. Clue number 18 specifies that a personalized message, on this screen it says Emmett, will appear each time a new employee arrives. So this visual with numbered clues builds a bridge between what the brand promises and what the business delivers. As an experience designer, your job is to specify clues. It's the business's job to make and deliver them each and every time. So the most important place to put creativity in the customer experience is between research and recommendations. If you let your clients participate in their future experience so they can become a part of it, it makes all the difference in the world. Let's go back to transitions and look at 1 year of work in 1 minute. Pay attention to how the client is part of it all the way through.
This is just taking things out into ways that are just amazing in terms of the technologies.
The notion is that fitting can also happen here. You're doing the fitting to put the order in to get the lenses made.
An option for me to actually start interacting with this appears. Now, if I walk away, it goes away. If I walk up, it actually turns on.
So that they'll go out and really tell these stories. Kind of to your point, Mike, about the almost this is where ambassadors are born.
The welcome station, if you can see this picture right here, it's really designed to just allow someone to come in and
you know, we had this dream for such a long time and it's reality now. I think can feel much more confident that we can really build this experience that we, dreamed up. This is the perfect experience and now here it is.
This is actually a QR code. Bruce, this has your name on it, by the way. Peter will show you a quick little demo on that.
This whole project can prove out the notion that customer experience can become the strategy of a company. So you saw the executives taking part during the physical walkthrough, and that's what won their support. Okay, last but not least, the most valuable and creative effect CX can have on your organization is to prototype the future of your organization. These 4 ideas about creativity, I hope, will help you make the future state clearer and get everyone on the same page. I'd like you to try these techniques so people can see strategy as an experience. You can guide the discovery to new ways to bring value to customers, employees, and the bottom line. You can be the one to help the best ideas break through conventional ROI thinking. Boom. So don't be afraid to make a statement and go beyond what the numbers say. That's my time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of CX Day. Take care.
Our next speaker probably knows a lot about digital collapse and then fixing it up. She's our digital guru and expert, and I'm sure she's been through her series of headaches over the years, and then the recoveries and the dealing with them. Rapalang Rabana, we're back in South Africa to finish off this global roundtable. And she is one of South Africa's digital gurus, having started a IT startup straight out of college, gone on to become the chief digital officer at one of the biggest tech firms in South Africa, and now helping people all around the world to fast forward their digital innovations. Rapalang, you finishing us off this afternoon. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Graham, for that introduction. I don't have any solutions for Mike's gremlins at this point. My solution is generally that demos don't work as expected. So be prepared. And I think Mike certainly rose to the occasion and was certainly very prepared. I'm going to share with you a couple of things around how I think about applying creativity in the workplace, and in this case in particular to improving customer experience. And I like to think of innovation as applied creativity. So the link is quite strong for me. And there isn't a company out there in the world that doesn't want to be more creative, more innovative, more transformed, yada, yada. And everyone's jumping on those bandwagons, right? And often when companies are trying to walk on this journey, we do all of the strategic analysis and we gather all the nice definitions. So a nice definition for creativity that people like to use is let's think out of the box. We have definitions for customer experience, like it's the impression your customers have of your brand as a whole throughout all aspects of that journey. We have definitions for innovation, like it's the practical implementation of ideas that result in the introduction of new goods and services, blah, blah, blah. And these things are all grammatically correct, but they don't help us as individuals, as managers within our organizations, figure out how to tap into those things and actually use them. So I want to position a different kind of thinking or approach here, where we look at an innovation or an innovation in customer experience as solving a problem or a customer friction point by removing a previous constraint in the customer's journey. And the future of customer experience is really around solving for those customer problems and friction points by removing previous constraints. So let's think of a simple example in this new world of COVID. I'm sure as the pandemic was rolling out, we all heard about using sanitizers and things like that. And all of the stores in our malls and offices, etc., suddenly got those dispensers for keeping your hands clean and the like. And initially it was just a bottle that you could spray the sanitizer on, and eventually we realized actually touching that bottle or touching the tap to switch off the water recontaminates your hands, right? So there was a constraint in how we were trying to sanitize our hands. And now we got all of those hands-free dispensers all over the place. I still wish I was one of those manufacturers who caught on quite early. And they were able to solve the problem by removing the constraint through a hands-free dispensation of the sanitizer. And that's a simple example of how we break constraints. And I think that's a simpler way to think about it because we could all see the constraint. And then it's about asking yourself, how do we use the technologies, the innovations around there to break more constraints in our customer experience? Let's go another step further in terms of an example. Way back when, where I'm sure none of us alive were on this call were around, people used to travel around with a horse and cart, right? And it was interesting that towns and villages were organized in a 5-kilometer radius, primarily because that's as far as traders could travel to go to their customers and come back to their stores to restock and things like that. And as a result, towns and villages were organized in smaller units like that. With the advent of, Model T, Ford and the like, suddenly people could travel a whole lot further, and it changed the structure and geography of towns and villages. And the key thing here is when, cars were brought in and the radius grew 10x in terms of, the size people could trade in a single day, the question that always comes to my mind is, did the people living in those times using the horse and cart, did they know that they were living under any constraints? And this brings us to the critical creativity component in this journey of improving customer experience using technology. And it's the initial realization of the mental blocks that you have around how your customer experience is currently working. It's essential to kind of unearth those assumptions because we've inherited them from previous generations, the bosses we admire, the managers we really like. And it's just so much easier to keep doing what was working before and what people you respect and admire told you works, right? And not being aware of the constraints you are currently operating in and accepting it as the status quo is ultimately the key thing that blocks creative potential and the transformation of customer experiences using technology. So some examples that I've seen through some of our work of how companies are beginning to shift and identify constraints is, for example, in banking, there hasn't been a single view of the customer for a long time now. The credit card had that thing, the vehicle finance guys had that thing, the transactional banking guys had that thing. And there was always this belief that it's different departments, different silos, they can't possibly connect, and therefore we can't serve our customers holistically. And again, those were constraints that were embedded over decades of financial services. Being able to predict what a customer wants and when has now become possible thanks to advanced data analytics in a way that wasn't possible before, right? And we couldn't have anticipated, or we might have thought that it was impossible at some point in time. The ideas on how we can reach customers. Before a decade ago, WhatsApp wasn't a channel to engage with our customers and actually provide a better customer experience than trying to call them and type out their email address and things like that over the phone. And those were things that could easily break those constraints. One of my favorite examples in the insurance sector is where an insurance company has transformed the process through which people can make claims. And instead of having your car accident and then, go to the police station and a couple of days finish all the reporting, as soon as you have an accident, there are sensors in the car that pick up there's an accident. It asks you to take pictures through the app, and using the AI and pattern recognition and image recognition stuff, it can start to determine the extent of the damage, how much it will cost, and it can also send over a drone to take more pictures if required, and ultimately trigger an Uber to come and pick you up. These are the kinds of things that could never have been imagined years ago, and it's almost so difficult for us to imagine that the insurance claims process could be so fundamentally different because we inherited so many constraints in how it works. So let me leave you with a final thought on how do you best then go out and figure out these constraints and challenges and get your organization moving. And the key mechanism here is that sitting by ourselves in the corner isn't how it works. We can't break our own mental blocks by ourselves. And this is where 3 to 5 day collaborative design sprints really play a role with cross-functional, cross-level teams where you're learning from first principles about the problem, ideating, prototyping, and taking that prototype to customers to actually test your thinking before you invest in that multi-million-dollar campaign or that multi-million-dollar customer transformation. Creativity generates ideas. Innovation turns those ideas into a practical reality. And innovation and customer experience ultimately solves for customer friction points by breaking all of these constraints. Thank you so much for joining me for this session. Thanks, Graham.